Chief Guest, Mr. Ravindra Kumar, IAS, Dr. Harish Shetty, Captain Anup Kumar, CMD SCI, Mrs. Joshi, Director SCI and Chairperson of the Subcommittee of the NMDC, my colleagues, Mr. Amitabh Kumar, Additional DG, who's here, recipients of each one of the felicitation awards, seafarers, their families, doyens, stakeholders, and well-wishers of the seafaring community, members of the National Maritime Day Celebrations Committee, ladies and gentlemen and friends. At the outset, felicitations to one and all on Seafarers Day, and special felicitation to those children who came here to receive the awards in recognition of what they have done and made the seafaring community proud. I was indeed surprised that there are so many of them who were into taekwondo and karate and jiu-jitsu. I think the seafaring community is doing well to protect itself. As we came here today, Mother Nature seems to have decided that she has to create an atmosphere, a mahal of being at sea. Lots of water flowing on the roads as we came here. And I remember 5 years ago, I had the occasion to visit Portugal, Lisbon in particular. And one of the things that I was advised to do, and we were a group, we were taken to the pub. It's very interesting how they live in Portugal. At that point of time, this was the early 90s. They worked from 8 to 12 in the morning. 12 to 4 was siesta. 4 to 8 was again work. And after 8, they went to the pub. And I still remember the songs that they sang. These songs were called the Fado, F-A-D-O, Fado. Very, very melancholic songs. And they are said to have its origin in the odes sung by women whose husbands were far away at sea. And it goes back to about 100 years ago when their husbands went out at sea and they didn't know, there was no communication, they didn't know when they would come back. Not weeks, not months, but maybe years. So they knew that there would be hardships on board, adverse weather conditions, constrained space, and most importantly, lack of communication with kith and kin. So these songs actually reflected the melancholy of these women who were waiting for the husbands, maybe their sons, to come home and not knowing how they are faring and when they will be back. Now, while this is going on board, the women and the family are worried about their well-being. But more importantly, the people on land, on shore, a majority of us, whether it's Portugal or India, we don't even realize that this is going on and see what's going on in the homes and hearts of the seafarers. What are their worries and what are their cares? So there are occasions when I thought we should recognize not only what the seafarers do, because the seafarers at times they have awards for their own achievements, bravery awards, special technical awards, etc., given by government, given by international organizations, by employers and the corporates. But what is it that we should do to recognize the efforts that the family have taken to keep the hearth going and keep sanity at home? So a few months back, I was on a flight and I was reading these magazines. And there were 2 interviews back-to-back in 2 different flights that I read. One of them, of course, was about the Commonwealth Games. I came across the news item that this young 16-year-old girl from the back of beyond in Haryana, she was not from Chandigarh, she was not from Delhi. And that's the parents of Manu Bhaker that we met today, and very proud to have met you and acknowledged not only the achievements of Manu Bhaker, but also the support and the encouragement given by her parents in a field that is still considered a little rare. Sports field is still not something that girls get into in spite of the PV Sindhus of the world. I was enthused by the news item and wondered aloud how many more of the children of mariners must be blazing trails in their chosen field. Indeed, there were many, not the least of it. The second interview I read on the second flight was when Aishwarya Rai actually said that she is the daughter of a marine engineer. So that is just two fields. And today we saw a lot of them being acknowledged for achievement in the sports. But I think in the months and years to come, we will collect enough information to felicitate those who have spread their wings and brought accolades in other fields like cultural and academic. It is only apt that on the occasion of Seafarers' Day, we recognize these achievements of the sons and daughters of the mariners. In a way, it is a recognition of the toils of the family, the wife, the sister, the mother, the grandmother, aunt, and of course other men in the family who shaped and guided the lives of the children while the seafarer was away at sea. My heartiest congratulations once again to each of you who was felicitated today, and to those of you spread across the world as role models. Hope there will be more and more such role models for the potential seafarers to take up merchant navy as a profession of choice. These children of seafarers would have been privy to the highs and lows of their parents, both the mother, what she experiences at home, and the father, what they experience at sea. I personally recall an anecdote many years ago. This was again in the 90s. And our closest family friend, the daughter was getting married. She was engaged to a person who was in the maritime sector. Now, at that point of time, I had no idea of shipping, so I don't even know whether he was in the nautical side or the engineering side. But the family friend himself was on the nautical side. He was a master, so the groom was also a mariner. As I said, no idea what mariners did those days, except that they traveled all over the world and brought a lot of chocolates for us and toys for us when they came back from sea. Like somebody said, gift le aana. So that was what we knew. And we also knew that when they came back, and when they left sailing, they started enterprises which grew, and many of them turned out to be entrepreneurs. But what happened was this girl was getting married to this mariner. I could not go for the wedding, so I had told my husband, will you please attend this wedding on my behalf, because they're the closest family friends. I'm not in a position to leave Mumbai. So my husband went, and then on the day of the wedding, he called me. He says, are you sure you got the date right? Are you sure you got the venue right? Are you sure you got everything right? I said, yes. He says, but there's nobody there, and there's nobody telling me anything. And later on, I found what had happened was this potential groom, the groom-to-be, was actually thrown out of the ship, and the marriage was obviously cancelled. The celebrations were cancelled because they couldn't even find his body. Now, it bothered me. It bothered me as what could have happened. It bothered me as a family friend of this girl who was getting married. But at that time, of course, I didn't know that I would be so much more closely associated with this sector, and my concern would be of a higher degree. 20 years down the line, and here I am in charge of the directorate, and we have more than 1.5 lakh active Indian seafarers on board Indian ships and foreign ships. More than half of them are extremely young. Now, if you look at, we've heard a lot about the mental well-being. I was reading an article in the International Maritime Health of 2012. There's a professional article written by Robert Iversonen, who says that when you collect the statistics from 1960 to 2009 on the number of demises by, on the part of seafarers, it shows that 5.9% of the seafarers who actually perished at sea perished due to suicide. Compare this with the deaths. Now, 17,026 seafarers of that period committed suicide, compared with 4,487 due to illness, and 590 seafarers as a result of, taking their own lives. These percentages would be higher if 50% of the deaths due to seafarers disappearing at sea are also included. So what they said is this article, it does not include the people who disappear. You don't know the real cause of it. And closer, if you look at it, yes, contributing factors are evidently increasingly fatigue. And fatigue not just due to sailing, but fatigue due to the documentation, increased documentation. Loneliness, of course, but the documentation is really killing them. There's family pressures and breakdown of extended family support. The extended family gave both problems to the woman who is left alone to look after the children, but it also extended support at the time of need. The societal expectations have increased. But look at the other side. If you see studies in general and mental health, even on onshore jobs, youngsters onshore who have nothing to do with seafaring, there's a lot of mental health issues going on there. And 70% of the cases of depression and associated health issues occur in the age group of 18 to 50. Now, this is the age group which is very active, whether on shore jobs or whether on sea jobs. So according to the Minds Foundation, there's a study done by the Minds Foundation, India is quoted to experience the highest rate of suicide among the age bracket of 15 to 29 years. And the reason I'm citing these studies is twofold. I find that there are two inferences we draw. I think the youth of India is facing immense stress. Depression is increasing among the youth who are both on land as on shore. The depression may be due to family, due to bad company, due to the jobs they take. So the second insight I got is what is happening to seafarers is not unique but reflective of societal trends. Very fragile minds, low inner strength, decreased support systems, dependence on external factors like gadgets and social media. Dr. Shetty said there is a difference between pleasure and joy, and I think the two are getting confused. You think it's pleasure and that's what I have to seek, but the joy, I think, comes from within, and that somehow, that content of joy is missing in these fragile minds. Once again, it is not just seafaring community which is facing this. So let's not get into a position where we say, oh, seafaring is a difficult job, therefore there is a higher proportion of people having this problem. Yes, they are away at sea, they are at a distance, they are not able to communicate as and when they wish with their kith and kin, but this is an affliction which seems to be common to society, especially the youth. We have, I would not like to dwell on just this health issue because we have larger concerns in the directorate when it comes to seafarers, which is even the seafarers who are sailing, who have no health problems, get into health problems because they're not paid their wages, replacement crews are not being sent, they're stranded, they face deteriorating living conditions, they seek to tweeting causes its own problem, the family gets even more worried that he's tweeting, you're putting out pictures. So this is a complicated era that we live in, and I think what we require is a concerted effort to address several of these issues by mental health experts, by the directorate, by the companies, and by the well-wishers of the seafaring community. And I thought I will share just 2 or 3 initiatives that would probably help in addressing this affliction that we have. One is, do we have a system or a mechanism that gives assistance to seafarers in need? I'm talking very specifically about legal, not financial and not societal, because that's a separate one. The circumstances and legal provisions that call for the seafarer to commence legal action. When does the seafarer start the legal action? The law provides certain conditions, but then the seafarer is not in a position to assess whether that's the right time to actually commence a legal action and perhaps run the risk of having adverse reaction. The agreement is between the employer and the employee. So how do the external actors come into this? Practical challenges are there in taking legal recourse within the 90 days stipulated by law. So we in the Directorate, I'm happy to say, are exploring the possibility of having a partnership with the Maharashtra National Law University to see how they can help us find a mechanism, establish a mechanism for legal aid assistance. How do you advise the seafaring fraternity? Can they in turn have a partnership or raise the capacity of the unions and the associations that are working with the seafarers to enhance the legal capability? Second is strengthening of legal provisions themselves. So I mentioned a few cases of concern for us. The new merchant shipping bill does address some of these gaps, but we need to build capacity collectively in enforcing the agreements. For example, how do we make sure that the crew which is overstayed on board is replaced? And how do we ensure that we take all the loose ends and put it together, because the crew is from one country, the ship is another country, ship is actually stalled in another country, and the owner is a fourth country, the manager is a fifth country. So how do we get all this together? Practical issues that need to be sorted out. A third, of course, is counseling, and there are several initiatives that have been taken by the unions, by the NGOs, and I had a communication from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences saying that they are interested in opening a 24/7 counseling center which will give professional counseling. There's one thing to counsel informally, there's another thing to have professional counselors at hand. When I say professional, it means they are proficient in their field of work as well as personally sympathetic to the cause of the family. And a last one that a thought that I would like to leave you with, and it ties very well with the number of felicitations that we've given. I think recreational sports, I think this country is not giving enough opportunities to children, and the children are not taking enough of the opportunities available to engage themselves in outdoor sports. By sports, I don't mean video games. Outdoor sports. I think I belong to a generation where outdoor sports was the outlet for all energy. I think parents would come and say, why are you kids running around shouting like crows? Just don't do this. We just ran from house to house. We ran from tree to tree. And I think one is you spend the energy, you have a good night's sleep. And the other is the sports gave us the ability to take failure with success, build a team, how to interact with a team. You never get the team of your choice. You have to deal with each other. You learned so many human interaction skills automatically when you played sports. It increases not only physical strength, it increases mental strength. And I still remember when I don't come from a very background of civil servants. Nobody works in government in my family. They all were teachers or engineers or lawyers. So when the first post that I had, I used to get, and I was in a very small place called Wardha in Maharashtra, and I didn't know who to talk to. It was as lonely as being on the sea because I didn't know anybody. I had no idea who I should seek help from. Remember, there were no cell phones, so you could not call at will saying, Mama, what do I do? Papa, what do I do? That's not possible. You had to book a phone call and wait about 4 hours, unless it was an emergency that you could tell him, and you pay 16 times and you got a lightning call. So then how do you get your anger out? How do you make decisions? And there were so many things that bothered you, frustrated you. So I went back to playing badminton. It was recreational badminton, nothing serious. And I remember saying, I used to play very well on days when I was angry. Why? Because a shuttle that came to you, I would imagine that is a person who needs to be beaten up. One smack on the shuttle, and the other person had no choice, and my anger was out. I'm giving a very simple example, and I'm so glad that so many kids are engaging in sports, and I'm sure you will find your own method of dealing with all the emotions that rise within your minds, and just get it out of your body, get it out of your mind, go home, have a good meal, hug your parents, and sleep. So more encouragement to sports. I think we have a chief guest who will tell you more about seafaring. He's done much more than seafaring. His introduction is as interesting as his speech would be, so I urge you to listen to that. I would like to end with sincerely thanking the organizing committee for getting the people together and bringing in a sense of belonging and pride about the seafarers. Happy Seafarers Day once again. Happy sailing, and thank you so much.